Hey guys, it's Jason with Kentucky Sustainable Living. I've got Shelly with Two Old Crows
Hey.
Homestead, and we've got Jake at his undisclosed location from Dog Creek Farms.
Hey guys.
So we're waiting right now. Bill is running a few minutes late, so hopefully he will join us here in just a few minutes. So and I got an echo.
Yeah, it's me. Go ahead. You're fine.
But yeah, hopefully Bill will be here in just a few minutes. What's new and going on right now? Shelly, you're setting up a new Facebook page.
Yes, I'm setting up a
Brian.
Facebook page for the festival, so you guys can go find it. It's at Kentucky's. The name of the Facebook page is Kentucky Sustainable Living Homesteading and Preparedness Festival. And if any of you all are on my Facebook page, you should have got an invite for it today because I invited every one of the people I know on Facebook. But you can find that there, like it, and follow us there. It's going to have a little bit more information than the event page, and it's just easier for us to boost and get the word out there. We can target areas that we want to share it with and everything. So that's the reason for that.
And Shelly, if you think I'm impatient, look at this. Bruce said his comfrey's not come up yet, and he picked the comfrey and moved up at 2:30 this afternoon.
Well, Bruce, I don't know what's going on, man. It should already be there.
All right, Bill is here. Let's bring him in. Hey, Bill. Glad you could make it.
Hold on here. Let me see if I can get some volume here. There.
Hey, Bill.
Hello. How are we doing today, folks?
Good. How are you?
Excellent. Thank you.
How's Sandy doing? And all your kids?
Good. She's good. They're doing good. They're just kind of relaxing and everything after I cooked dinner. You got to come over here so I can see.
Put a hand in.
Oh. She said she put a hand in so you can see her hand.
Hey, Sandy.
And, okay. Hey.
Hello, Sandy.
Hi. I'm gonna go handle the dogs.
All right. Well, we'll start off. Bill, tell everybody kind of who you are, what makes you tick, what you're doing, and all that good stuff, and kind of introduce yourself.
All right. So
to the 3 million people watching.
How many people do we just have? Just 4 of us in here?
There's 4 of us on here. We've got 5 people right now watching. That's what it looks like.
Okay.
But really, it's 3 million.
For those that haven't met me, some of you guys have. My name is Bill Stormfeather. I am a currently waiting on retirement military person. I spent pretty much the last 27 years of my life serving between the United States Marine Corps and the U.S. Army. I work in the Special Operations community. I am not a door kicker. For those that are sitting there going, well, he doesn't look like a door kicker. It's because I am not a door kicker. That is kind of the younger man's job. I did that thing for a while, but now I work smarter, not harder. I am a 37 Fox, which is a psychological operations tactical team sergeant. So I'm the guy that basically goes over into bad areas and says, hey, come to the good side. We have cookies. And I basically try to talk to people and convince them to not do bad things against coalition forces. So in doing that, that allows me to change the mindset of the enemy and hopefully has a less of a lethal impact against U.S. forces. So that's basically what I do. What makes me tick? My family. First and foremost, everything I do is geared towards my family and making sure my family is happy, healthy, and can get through anything that trials and tribulations that come upon them. And that, as a father and as a protector of my family, I always saw that as my role. What else you got for me?
I don't know. You got an awesome wife. She plays a good injured person. So
yeah. My wife, Sandy, she's a medically retired out of the U.S. Navy, and we are basically recent additions here down to the Kentucky area. We basically got moved down here. In December of 22, just last year. So we're about 8 months into the state now. I've done a lot of work down here around Fort Knox. I work at Fort Knox on a continually rotating basis. A lot of people don't realize it, but the Navy SEALs actually has an East Coast training group that works out of Fort Knox. So we train young Navy SEALs in the art of war. So when a SEAL basically graduates buds, that means they know how to swim, they know how to hold their breath, they know how to look really good in Oakleys and suntan lotion and play with a beach ball, but they don't really know a lot about war. So what things I do is me and myself and a bunch of other military folks and quite a few veterans is we teach them how to war. We go through everything that you would teach basic infantrymen, and we start them off on day one, crawl, walk, and run, and we run them through a 2-week course of basically urban operations and urban combat. And so by the time they leave us, they're actually ready to go out there and try to be good at war.
Yeah, that surprised me. You told me the other day when we were talking that the Navy SEALs had a training base at.
Well, it's not something that's usually put out for a lot of people, and locally it's well known, which is surprising, but it's kind of like a well-known secret, I guess.
Yeah, that's cool. I guess we'll go in and we'll start off. You're coming to the festival. You're one of our speakers.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of tell everybody, give them a little bit of what you're going to talk about, and give them some of the stuff like that.
Okay, so one of the classes that I've put together as I'm getting closer towards retirement, I've been looking at things that I can do to kind of keep myself busy, first off. And so I started talking about some people. It just happened to be a conversation online one day about world experiences I had about countries and the countries falling apart. And someone asked me, it's like, well, what's your experiences? I was like, well, I was over in Somalia when that fell. I was in Bosnia and Croatia right as that was falling. I've been in Iraq and Afghanistan, both societies that have fallen. And then Philippines during Mount Pinatubo when the volcano erupted there. And then Venezuela as well. I was doing work down there. And it was like, I realized that all kind of translates into seeing what happens in communities in the first 30 and 60 days of when a country experiences an extreme upheaval to the point where society collapses. It can be a natural disaster like in Mount Pinatubo with the Philippines. It can be an internal strife, such as like Somalia, Bosnia, or it can be a financial crisis, just like down in Venezuela. So all the time I was in these countries, one of the things that I did is I always took notes, because in the military, that's one of the things I always do is paying attention. I'm always taking notes of what's going on around me and paying attention to the effects, because as a PSYOP guy, that's my job, is to look at effects, how mindsets and mentalities are affected. So basically I put together about an hour and a half presentation on what my experiences were watching a society collapse and the things that happened in the immediate aftermath of that during the first 30 days and all the way up to about 60 days in. So currently the first 30 days is actually something that, and this was kind of hard for me, is I'm actually putting it into a book and writing a book on it. But it's, but it's in the meantime, basically, I give like I said, it's about an hour and a half PowerPoint presentation. I've given this to groups in Wisconsin. I did it at the Minnesota Preppers Expo. I've done it for Special Operations Command, and it's very well received. And it's just my personal experiences. It's not saying how it will be for everybody. I'm just relaying what happened with me and my personal experiences in it.
All right.
Can't wait to read the book.
No, it's about 300 pages in right now, but it's got a ways to go.
That's awesome. Now, Bill, so you've seen the first 30 and the first 60 then on different places.
Yep.
What in your opinion, and I know it's different for different locations and different circumstances, is the first 30 or the first 60 the worst?
The first 30 is where the most confusion sets in.
Am I asking that question wrong?
No, I understand exactly. I mean, which one's worse, the first 30 or the 60 days? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
The first 30 days is where the majority of the confusion lies, in all honesty. You've got probably it's kind of interesting. Within the first 8 to 10 days, people realize the government's not coming to save them.
Yeah.
And those that were walking into it with that mentality of nobody's coming to save me, we're on our own, they're already 8 days ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where the big tricky thing lies is the sooner you get the jump on it and realize, hey, nobody's coming to save me, the better off you are. It's because you'll have your initial run on sundries, foods, toilet paper, it's just all the stuff that people think they need. It's no different than if you live down in Florida and a hurricane's coming, or you live, down in Texas and a snowstorm's coming.
Yeah.
People lose their minds for the first 2 or 3 days, and it's like, oh, okay, well, it's not so bad. And that's kind of that moment of relaxing and complacency is usually what gets them.
Gotcha.
But those that are prepared have a tendency to be like, okay, initiate, plan Bravo, let's do it. And everybody goes in, those that have been practicing and working their crafts and their skills and their preps and planning ahead for a situation like this, they usually fare really well. The biggest problems that I see is when you get to about week 3, when those that are semi-prepared or were almost prepared have pretty much gone through supplies and everything they need, and you're getting to the point where your children aren't being fed, your children are hungry, and as heartbreaking it is to see and watch, it's people's mindsets and attitudes and mentalities change. So you get people that were really good people at the beginning and said, hey, we're ready for this, we can do this. And then they realized that they weren't prepared, and some pretty dastardly things will be done in the name of feeding a child, especially when it's your child.
Oh yeah.
Sure.
And the nice thing, the great thing I see about what you're doing with your book and your speaking engagements is you've actually lived this, and it's not a bunch of prepper porn of this might be how it goes.
Yeah. And this is one of the things, and it's basically in my presentation, the very beginning of my presentation, like, who am I? It's like, I say, this is based on my experiences. I teach a way of doing things, not the way. One of my biggest pet peeves is people that call themselves subject matter experts. And it's like, well, when world goes to hell, this is what you need to do. Buy my book, buy my ammo, buy my gun, buy my backpack, buy my survival bag, my IFAC. Because when the world goes to shit, you're going to need this. Well, how do you know?
Yeah.
Has your world ever gone to shit? Have you ever been there when it has? What's your experiences that says that makes you a subject matter expert on this? And for me, I consider myself an SME only because I know a whole lot, and I said this before, I know a whole lot about very little. But the stuff that I do know, I've got down pretty good.
Yeah.
There's a guy called Selko Begovic. Some people might know the name, some might not. Basically, he's a gentleman that went through Bosnia when, during the Croatian War, and he survived the entire thing. And what makes it different from him from everybody else is he kept a diary the entire time. And so he logged every day what he did, what he saw, what he experienced, what he traded, what he bartered, what he bought, what he stole. He kept this diary, and then somewhere along the lines, after the Bosnian War was over, somebody was talking to him about it, and they were reading it, and they're like, you need to put this in a book. And he actually did. He wrote like 3 or 4 books on it, on his experience in Bosnia. Someone like that, I bow down to. I say that is a subject matter expert because they lived it day in, day out for years until society managed to rebuild itself, or you escape from that particular afflicted region. The great part about it is that he wrote this book so everybody that can sit there and say, what's it going to be like, can read that and actually see what a certain instance in society will be like when it goes to hell, when it actually does go to hell.
Yeah.
And so I recommend that for anybody. If you ever get the chance, Selko Begovic is the guy's name. And, look up his books, or just look up the name Selko, Selco, in Bosnia. And literally you will find, his books on there. And his books are written in a very broken English because English is not his first language. But you will definitely get the gist of it. He will talk about women prostituting themselves for a can of corn. Things like that. not being able to go outside because the neighbors down the street are starting to have a feud over who got 3 tomatoes off of the plant, and so now they're sniping each other. I mean, the extremes that he saw, he wrote it all down so you can experience it in a book form before you have to experience it in reality.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds like a book that everybody in the preparedness space needs to read and reread. It sounds like.
Yep. And like I said, it's one that he's probably the only person, in my opinion, that can literally say, buy my book and have a legitimate reason why.
Yes.
Hey, Spags.
Spags is here.
And you can find that book on Amazon. I already looked it up.
Can you
Nice.
share a link on the feed?
Yeah, throw a link in, Jake.
You know, I don't know how to do anything tech. I barely can get on this
What?
live stream.
All right, let me see if I can find it. What's his name again?
Stelko Begovic.
Selko. Okay. let me see if I can find it.
SELCO.
I just Googled the SELCO Bosnia survivor, like you mentioned. It comes right up. So what's something, like, with all your experience that, you know, people that read all these books and prep and different things, like what's some, obviously we'll talk about all this at the expo, but like what's a couple points of something that most people don't think about that are just going to be, that you've seen, you know, over and over?
That's a good question. Most people sit there and don't realize that, you know, myself, one of the things I preach on when it goes to shit is where you at on food. You know, as soon as it's going sideways, are you planting food? Are you planting crops? What's the average gestation time from putting kale in the ground to be able to harvest kale to feed your family? And you know, 76 days. You know, so what do you do between day 1 and day 76 where you can start harvesting food? And then do you have the food supplies that get you that far? Most established preppers I know, yes, of course I got plenty of supplies. Okay, what happens if you lose half your supplies? Be it from water damage, raiders, fire, you know, pure bad luck. You know, do you still have enough to sustain? That's a big one with me, is making sure that the family's fed. Because for me, the most heart-rendering thing for me was hearing kids scream and cry because they weren't being fed. And I got 7 kids. So you can believe that food is the one thing I focus heavily on, is to make sure my kids are always fed. The second past that is you can go 3 days without water. That's great, but you know, how many people don't know how to make an actual improvised filter? If you have life straws, if you have Sawyers, if you have, you know, Berkeys, you have all these awesome, phenomenal products out there that help you filter water. That's great. You have backups for it. You have replacement filters for it. Most people look at the 5-yard and the 50-yard targets. Very few people concentrate on the 500s.
Yeah.
Because they don't see it as a threat because it's so far off. My thing is, I know once I concentrated on my 5-yard targets, I instantly switched to the 500s, those long distance term goals. And like, okay, what do I need to do to ensure that I make it to there? 5-yard targets gets me from day of incident to 30 days in. The 500 yards gets me 3 years out. That's how I look at it. And a lot of people, like I said, this is a way of doing it. My way and your way may not work together, but it's a way. It's not the way.
Hey,
So
Tag,
yes.
we got Tags in here. It's good to have you, Tag. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah. So that's primarily for me is food and water. Guns and ammunition. I never preach on guns and ammunition because people will sit there and say, what's the best gun for combat? The gun you got in your hand, you know? What's the best gun for hunting? The one you've hunted with before.
Yeah.
What's better, an AR or an AK? What do you have the most training experience with? You know, I'm never going to say this caliber is better than that caliber or this weapon system is better than that weapon system because everybody's different. You know, like in my house, we standardized all of our calibers to NATO calibers because if shit goes sideways and say the government takes a big fat just fuck you to the American people, Well, they're going to be using NATO calibers. So if I need a resupply, hey, guess where I'm going to get my resupply from? you know?
Well,
So
and let's face it, that's the sexiest thing to collect. So usually we all
loot drops. So, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, there's quite a few things that I see that, and everybody that I've talked to about it, that in the beginning, I tried to change their minds. And then I came to the realization that the majority of preppers, you can't change their minds. You can educate and hope that they take what you give them with a grain of salt. But if they're dead set, you can't change their mind. So what I do right now is I just basically try to say, hey, guys, I'm giving you another tool for your toolbox. That's all I'm doing. I'm giving you option ZZZ, versus option A, B, C, D. So that way you've always at least got an extra tool in your toolbox that you could possibly use to help you make it to the next day.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I mean a lot of people overlook some of the stuff like the 500-yard target. They get the immediate threat and then the intermediate threat, and they're not looking longer term on
Yep,
stuff.
and that's one of the biggest flaws that I've seen is that people forget that if you're lucky enough to make it past day 15, and you then by some miracle of luck, fate, hard work, blood, sweat, and tears, you hit the 30-day mark. What happens when you hit the 700-day mark?
Yeah,
you got to plan for that stuff. I mean, it's a whole roller coaster of stuff that, and nobody can be 100% prepared for it. I'll be the first to tell you that. I look at my kids. I have twin 15-year-olds, a boy and a girl. At that age, am I planning out? It's like, ooh, do we plan on birth control for them? As silly as that sounds, it's like at 90 days, that's not a big issue. But what about in 700 days?
Yeah.
Things like that. There's so many other things that fall along the lines there. My medications. What am I going to do? What kind of homeopathic remedies can I use in place of my high blood pressure meds?
Yeah.
Those are things that you have to look at. If you can sit there and make it past that 90-day mark, that's awesome, phenomenal, because a lot of people will not make it past the 90-day mark. Most won't make it past the 60-day. But those that do, now you have to sit there and think, okay, I've made it this far. I've survived. Now what do I got to do to thrive?
Yeah.
Tell Sandy to message me because I've been researching herbal birth control.
Okay, will do.
Birth control.
I've got some herbal birth control right here.
That's the other way.
And I mean,
one pill at a time.
Yeah. Well, and talking about planning ahead, like I've got kids too. I mean, my 7-year-old, he's almost 8. Every time I'm in a store, I look at the next 2 sizes up for clothes.
Yep.
And when they're on clearance, I'm like, yeah. I was in Academy a couple weeks ago, and I came home. They had stuff at 75 and 80% off. Under Armour, Academy brand, all that stuff. I came home with 2 huge bags of clothes for him for like $75. I'm like,
nice.
That's a no-brainer. So I always buy stuff like that and always looking out.
Yep. One of the things that we did, and when we first started, I'm going to actually go outside here and have a beer and a cigarette while I'm talking to you guys. One of the things that we did when we first got into this journey of prepping was we went and started stacking school books.
Yeah.
And crayons and writing paper and things of that nature, because we just never knew if society went to hell, how would we teach our kids? And now that our kids are 15 and going on 13, it's not such a big deal for us in that aspect, because they're at the age now that they're learning and they're pretty smart as far as that. So we still maintain the older books for like high school and stuff like that, but the elementary stuff like that, we're not so much focused on anymore.
Yeah. And I do that. The crayons, the pencils, the books, and the notebooks, everything. As soon as school goes back in, and they put it on sale, I mean, you can pick up those 1-subject notebooks for like 10 cents or something.
Oh yeah.
I've got file cabinets full of that stuff.
And one of the great things you can do is you can actually go to your libraries, your local libraries. And I never realized this to an old school guy recommended it to me, is like libraries cycle out their books. So you can go to them and say, hey, is there any books you guys are getting rid of that are you just going to throw away or give away? And they will give you tons of books.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know
We do all the
that.
time.
Well, D. Brett is in Georgetown. Good to have you here. So, what's some other stuff that people will overlook for the long haul? 'Cause most everybody's got, you know, the first 30 and 60 and stuff like that. You know,
Yeah.
but the that's where a lot of people, and I agree with you, they lose it after about 90 days. It's like,
Yeah.
what do we do now?
Shoes.
Yep.
Shoes is as silly as that sounds. Shoes is a big one. A good durable hiking boot. You know, it's great because once your fuel supplies run out, unless you've got a horse to ride or a cow to ride, you're going to find yourself relying on them black Cadillacs that you got on the end of your ankles there. So, you know, having a good durable shoe, and then after that shoe wears out, do you have a backup for it? Do you know how to take a tire and cut out and make a new sole for it? You know, as what does it say? Feminine hygiene products and waste removal. Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, it's all those things go to bettering your health.
And my wife makes fun of me. I've got shoes upon shoes, and when the place puts them on sale, I wear Merrell and Danners. I wear a pair of Merrells, and then I got a pair of Danners that I like. And I've got boxes and multiple pairs of those. And she's like, "Why do you have so many?" And I'm like, "Hell, they were on sale, so I just stacked them deep." And I've probably got 7 or 8 pairs of shoes that are still in the box I've never worn, just sitting there.
Yep. One of the things that, like, I kind of, and this is somewhere where I personally lucked out at, was the military, because I'm on the special operations side. They're giving us boots every 3 to 6 months, winter boots, summer boots. And if you're not wearing them out, they're still giving them to you. They still allot that stuff to you. So I end up having, 10, 15 pairs of combat boots that are just brand new in the box, just stacked up in a tough box.
Oh yeah. And now
But
All right, Bruce. That's what we want.
Bruce is our resident leather expert. He'll make shoes for us.
Oh, nice.
Bruce
Leather
Bruce,
Homestead.
Huh?
I was just reading that. Leather Homestead. Nice.
Yeah. Bruce makes some amazing leather stuff. He's going to be at the festival, so you'll get to meet him, Bill.
It is
Excellent.
absolutely beautiful, the stuff he makes. Oh my
And
gosh.
he's only about 25 or 30 minutes south of me, so he's
Nice.
relatively close.
Nice. But yeah, so I mean, there's a myriad of things that people don't think about. But like I said, everyone's situation is different. Right now, I'm looking into a mechanical diesel motor that I want to purchase and switch into my 4Runner. My first generation 4Runner. So that way I can sit there and run off of biodiesel.
Yep.
That we can sit there and make or go to a junkyard, collect old transmission fluid, whatever, motor oil and strain it, and you'd be able to use that as biofuel. That's one of my projects that I want to accomplish within the next, hopefully within the next year. So everyone has their own parameters of what they want to prepare for. I try to give the most common ones, boots, medical, if your feet aren't good, you're not going to be making any type of transitions. Hunting in the woods is going to suck. Crossing a river is going to suck. Walking 5 miles out to do any hunting, if your area is hunted out, that's going to suck. So for me, taking care of your feet is huge. Making sure that your family's happy and healthy. Healthy is a big thing. It's the number one thing. Happy is another. Kids these days, I mean, I know, some of us have kids that are preteen to teens, they're locked on their cell phones. I mean, hell, some of us are even locked onto our cell phones. What do people do when they don't have the internet to access?
Oh, yeah.
It's do you have board games? Do you got crossword puzzles? Do you have, any type of things to keep the people mentally active? So
Oh yeah.
For me, that is a big one. And like
We've
someone
got a
was
bunch
just
of
saying
dogs.
on there, medical's huge, but the downside to it is when the countries I saw, medical supplies would come and go. It was kind of like a ebb and flow tide with that. Sometimes they'd have plenty, but when you're dealing with rival militias, warfare on multiple levels and multiple tiers, from a neighborhood level all the way up to countrywide, medical supplies can get depleted very quickly. So,
And what kind of medical supplies did you see ebb and flow? Are you talking about Band-Aids, bandages,
Band-Aids, bandages, sutures. Granted, if you got a needle and thread, you got a suture. It's just you're going to look pretty ugly with it unless you're really good at practicing. But I mean, it is what it is.
Here's
But
Chuck.
also,
Chuck came in here. He's our medical guy. He does home
Nice.
medicine. Chuck was going to be here last Saturday, but he couldn't make it.
Yep.
So
I mean, having people with a medical professional background is phenomenal. It's like I said, there was a group that I was working with at one point in time. They had a doctor and a nurse, husband-wife team. They're like, we don't know a whole lot about prepping, but we want to learn. And, everybody was hesitant, like, what do you guys do? And he's like, I'm an emergency room doctor. My wife's a nurse. And people are like, we got you, bro.
yeah.
It's because that is the one thing that they lacked was mostly everybody who's into prepping can do level 1 triage and care for themselves or for another person. Stop the bleeding, start the breathing. That stuff's pretty simple. Keep the red stuff in and keep the heart going up and down and the chest going up and down. As long as there's not massive trauma, you can pretty much help someone survive. But if it's a non-massive injury, a mass tissue injury, what do you do? Do you have someone that can diagnose diabetes or diagnose a heart murmur or, all these things that traditional medicine you would go to find out?
Yeah.
I can't. I know that. But I sure as hell, that's why I don't ask my dentist to breach and clear a house because it's not my specialty or not his specialty.
And that's one of the things that Chuck teaches in his homestead medicine class is he teaches a little bit of the cool guy sexy stuff, but most of it is long-term care and a patient assessment and stuff like that. So which is awesome class. He did a 2-day class for us down here at my place this winter. There was amazing. Nice. And he's doing a 1-day homestead medicine class Friday before the festival.
Nice.
But yeah, if you had a doctor and had a dentist in your group, you're set and golden then, in my opinion.
I have to agree with you there. That's definitely for sure.
Because you can be the biggest, baddest dude on the block, but if you got a toothache, you're out of the game sometimes. Yeah. Chase is Chuck's son. He said I helped. And Chase was our dummy that we practiced on. So, what else do we need to talk about? Shelly, think of something good. Bill, tell us some good stories from when you saw some of that stuff that people really think about.
So I was in the Philippines, and my first real experience when Mount Pinatubo erupted was we had just left the country. I was in the Marines, and we were on a Navy ship deployed. We were 2 days out, so we weren't that far out. But when Mount Pinatubo erupted, the ship actually went almost at a 40-degree camp. And alarms are going off and claxons and all this. General quarters being sounded. We find out that there's an eruption. We turn around. We're heading back and everything. And I remember pulling into port, and I've got video of this somewhere, of us pulling into port, and I had a camcorder at the time. And when we had left, I'd taken video, and it was nice, green, lush, double, triple canopy jungle outside of town on the mountaintops and all that. And then we pulled back in. It looked like basically a nuclear wasteland. There was nothing green to be seen. It just pretty much had killed off all the vegetation, and everything was it was almost like it was snowing, but it was all ash falling. And so we commenced emergency evacuation operations and all that. And a few of us got assigned to go out in town and help out in the local populations. And I was sitting there looking at a dog, was petting this dog, oh, nice dog and all that, poor fella, probably hungry and thirsty and this and that. Dog's walking away. Got about half a block away, and I watched a herd or a flock or a group of monkeys come tearing down the street and attack the dog and ripped it apart to eat it. And at that point, I always thought monkeys like bananas. So to see a pack of monkeys tear a dog apart and just start eating it kind of blew my mind. It was like, that's how bad it is? And then I found out that monkeys will eat pretty much anything, but for them to actually go and attack animals and kill them was not something I had ever expected or thought of.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that monkeys were carnivores, but I guess they would be as closely related to us as they are.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a pretty eye-opening experience in itself. The majority of my stories, for the most part, believe it or not, aren't really good stories from overseas, experiences and stuff like that. Because most of the places I've been have been where you get to see the worst in humanity.
Yeah.
So
So seeing
there's not a whole lot of good stories to share.
I know that you see, obviously you see like lots of bad stuff, but do you ever see, do you ever see good stuff too? Do you see like acts of kindness or anything like that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. On occasion
people.
you'll see random acts of kindness, but in the situations I'm usually in, they're few and far between. It's you kind of have to, for us as military people, we kind of have to keep our guard up. So we have a tendency to keep people at a distance. So anyone that you'd want to perform acts of kindness with, you don't want to trust because, you don't know what their true intentions are.
Yeah.
So with all you've seen, what's your thoughts for somebody who thinks something like that could never happen here?
Give me just a second. I've got a helicopter in the background here. I'm sorry. Could you go ahead and repeat that now?
Yeah.
So over you, Bill.
Yeah. With everything you've seen, what would you say to somebody who thinks something like that could never happen here?
It can. Oh yeah. It could definitely happen here. Think about it. We're in 2023. So year 2000, if I sat there and said, hey guys, there's going to be, for the next 25 years, there's going to be a pandemic that shuts down the United States and going to force everybody to stay home, lose their jobs, become, financially, bankrupt probably for the most part, probably 1/3 of the population. And they're going to force everybody to wear face masks.
That's
Would
my
you believe
answer
me?
every time somebody asks me that question.
Yeah.
Too.
And it's like you sit there and go, nah, that couldn't happen. Well, it'll be at the point where, presidents will be getting, friggin' put up on charges. Elections will be, stolen and all these things that are happening. You look in the last 10 years of all things that happened. There'll be riots going across the United States over a black man who was a criminal who died because he was overdosed and picked a fight with the cops. And then the country just went on its friggin' ass and lost its fucking mind, excuse my French, and started rioting all throughout the United States. That wouldn't happen because this is America.
Yeah.
But yet it did happen.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
women were beating the hell out of each other in the grocery store over toilet paper.
Yeah. You only have to see how bad it can get. Just look at Black Friday at Walmart.
Right?
Yeah. And that's over cheap stuff that, nobody's buying stuff on Black Friday. Anybody who goes out shopping for Christmas on Black Friday isn't shopping for Christmas. They're just trying to get a good deal. Let's be honest.
That's stuff that they don't need to live, too.
Exactly. So
think about it. If it goes, you're fighting over that last can of corn at Walmart as opposed to fighting over a new 65-inch TV.
Yeah, exactly. So
With some weaves pulled out.
I can see how it could very easily happen here. I think with all the racial tensions that's been going on for the last 2.5 years, things have kind of started to calm down on it. Black Lives Matter got caught. Oops, wait a minute. We didn't really help anybody, but we accepted, $90+ billion in donations. And all the people that were sitting there, all the celebrities and all the business that were saying Black Lives Matter, all of a sudden are going, wait a minute, what'd you do with that $1 million I donated to you?
Yeah.
Well, I got this really nice mansion out in LA, so it's one that I don't think that the racial tensions are there as much, but people are still upset with law enforcement. They're still upset with the government. They're still upset with the leaders of the country. It's, you look at January 6th, you compare January 6th with, say, the George Floyd riots. What caused more damage to this country?
Yeah.
A bunch of Americans that went there and protesting peacefully.
Yep.
It's, sure, they went inside the building. The doors were open to them. I didn't see them trashing any buildings and burning any buildings down.
Yep.
They had the ability, they had the means, they had the equipment to do it. I mean, they could have, but they stayed between the velvet ropes, for fuck's sake, when they were walking through the buildings.
Oh yeah.
I mean, sure, there was a couple bad actors that sat there and went in offices and posed for pictures, and I get it, because if I would have been there, I'd have been like, heck yeah, I want to sit here and pose on this person's desk and kick my feet up and get a picture. That's kind of fucking cool. But as a military guy, I can't do that.
Oh yeah.
So
and that goes into the two-tier justice system that we've got, honestly.
yeah, so I mean, we're not far off, and the scale can jump either way. That's how I look at it, which is, it sucks that we're at that point. I mean, will it happen in the next year? I don't think so. God, I hope not. Next 5 years, I'm praying that it doesn't. But 10 years, yeah, I would say we're looking at some hell on earth here in the continental United States.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I totally agree. I mean, and the thing is, it could change in the blink of an eye. Honestly, I mean, we can.
It can.
Everything. I mean, of course, everybody's wet dream. A lot of this stuff is, an EMP is going to hit. EMP is going to hit. But I mean, honestly, that's a threat. It could happen in the blink of an eye. You've got no electricity. All your electronic stuff is fried and everything.
And in all honesty, I don't think an EMP would be a bad idea.
It probably would not.
Separates the wheat from the chaff, and puts people back on a footing where you got to sit there and talk to the people next door and make friends real close to you, which a lot of people don't even know how to do nowadays.
Oh yeah.
Right.
D. Britt wants to know: will there be a 2024 election?
Will there be? I believe there will. Will it be legitimate? Ugh. That's.
I don't know.
It'll be.
That's anybody's guess there.
It'll be as legitimate as all the other ones have been. So
it's. I don't have an answer for that. I wish I did. I know what, like, myself, when I'm overseas, one of the jobs or one of the things that we do is see how we can influence elections and stuff. And as a PSYOPer, we are forbidden not only by civilian law and the Constitution, but also by military law from practicing psychological operations within the continental United States. We are forbidden from it. That is one of the very dictums of being in PSYOP, is that you understand you cannot practice PSYOP on American citizens within the continental United States.
That's because somebody else probably is.
Well, the downside to that is when I'm wearing an American soldier's uniform, I abide by those rules. But when people get out of that uniform and no longer, being held to those rules by the military, there's nothing saying they can't. And these guys get hired by political action committees. They get hired by election campaigns, to practice their craft.
Yeah.
And some of the guys that I know that have went that route, they're good at it. So, I mean, in the last 10 years, I quit watching the news because I see so many aspects of PSYOP in the news.
Oh yeah.
So it's out there, believe it or not. And it's, in some areas it's really blatant, and in others it's so hidden that unless you know what to look for, you'd never know it unless someone pointed it out.
Yeah. My whole take on the whole election deal and everything. First, everything has been rigged for the longest time. And this will probably piss some people off, but the thing is, don't rely. It doesn't matter what happens in 2024. It matters what happens in my backyard and in my neighborhood. I've got control and somewhat influence in that area. I have no influence in what happens in Washington, D.C., nor will I ever have any. And it's a lot of people are pinning their hopes. It's like, oh, God, Trump's going to come save us. Trump ain't going to do shit. He didn't save us the first 4 years he was in. So what makes you think he's going to save us this time? It's like, stop waiting for somebody to save your ass and save your own ass.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not Bill. I'm not waiting for you to come save me.
Yep.
I mean, I'm doing my own stuff. It's
exactly. It's being able to control your own battle space.
Yeah. I mean, I'm more worried about what's happening within 50 miles of my house than what's going on 500 miles away.
Yep. I fully agree. It's being able to control and influence my personal battle space, which is, as you're saying, a 5 mile radius around me. As long as I can maintain, that bubble around my area, really don't give a shit what happens 500 miles out until that 500 miles is knocking on my door. Once it gets into my 5 mile radius, well, then it's something I'll address.
Yeah. And that's where the thing is. You can have a lot of influence in your small area and stuff like that. And I've heard a lot of people talk about it. Bear talks about it a bunch, about being a warlord, and not in the typical sense of a warlord like you see in Africa or Somalia, but a warlord where you've got influence in that area to get stuff done. Essentially be a nice warlord with it, where you've got that influence to make stuff happen. And that's what I've looked at.
Your cat's meowing and my wife's wondering where our cat is.
He's about to make me crazy.
Oh, that's okay. No, I fully agree. It's like Sandy and I joke about it, is like, does your husband have enough warlord potential?
Yeah. And I mean, that goes in with the alternate economy and stuff like that. Yeah, they can do all this crap in D.C. or they can do all this stuff wherever. If we've got a core group of people in our 50 to 100 mile radius that we can communicate with and barter and trade with, we're doing a heck of a lot better. If they go to a whole freaking digital currency crap, I've got sheep here and you've got whatever I need, Bill, we can trade, and then we don't need a digital dollar.
That is very true. Very true.
I mean, if I need pork, Shelly's got pigs. I can trade her something for that, or I can go work at her farm for such and such, and we can trade.
Sweat equity, man.
Yeah.
And Bear's always talking about, know your sheriff, make friends with your sheriff, let him know that you support them and you're there to help with whatever, and all that stuff is important. And like you said earlier, people are on their phones so much that they don't even know who their neighbor is, and they don't know how to talk to people, and they don't know how to, it's pathetic.
They don't know how to communicate.
Right.
In all honesty, it's communication, face-to-face communication skills is a dying art form, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
It truly is.
I mean, I use face-to-face communication every day with work. I mean, being a contractor, you have to talk to your customers every day with stuff. So there are a lot of people, if they can't text you, they don't know how to communicate with you. That or send you an email.
That is true. 100% correct.
Yeah, I mean, text has its place, but and I'm the type of person, I'd rather give you a phone call if we're going to talk about something instead of spending 30 minutes texting it back and forth.
Yeah. So what else would you guys like to talk about?
I don't know. Shelly and Jake come up with something good. Bruce did say Trump's not the answer, and I agree with Bruce.
I agree with him too.
Yep.
But I don't want to go that direction with this video.
I look at it this way: as I vote the issues, not the person.
Right.
That's how I do it. And when it comes to the lesser of all evils, that's how I'm pretty much going to vote.
Yeah.
I mean, we're always picking the lesser of all evils.
Yep.
I mean,
very true.
All big business. It's all,
Very true. Yep.
It would just be really nice one time if there wasn't if they weren't all evil. That would just be,
Yep, I fully agree.
Or if we could get some younger people in there that didn't have freaking strokes when they were talking at the podium.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Does any of the viewers have any questions?
I don't know. Does anybody have any questions that's in here? We got looks like 13 people in here. While we're waiting, I don't know. Jake, what do you want to talk about?
Nothing. I
Stay within
already
the line.
asked my questions that I was pretty interested in. I'm looking forward to watching the presentation or watching the video if I'm helping with something else during it. But be sure, go to the website, check out the website, register so you get updates for the festival. Look for the new page Shelly just created, and I look forward to meeting Bill in person. And I mean, it's just, you can read all the prepper books and different things. I mean, I read them all just because that's the only thing I read. But I mean, seeing real life experience, I already have that book you mentioned earlier in my Amazon cart. So
yeah,
I have to ask my wife to order it because she's in charge of Amazon. I'll be reading that, and definitely look forward to your book coming out. Obviously, that'll be super interesting.
Okay, Bill, with all the military,
Will the military fire on civilians, in your opinion?
Nope, not even close. One of the things, like I said, one of the nice parts about being in PSYOP is we get to war game a lot, and when we deploy in a 4-man team into what we call the battle space. Our battle space can be anywhere from a town to a region the size of Texas. And you got 4 people over there to work in that area. So you have a lot of autonomy. So there's times that I will sit there and trust a specialist who's got 3 years in the military with a decision that could affect 100,000 people because I trust them on it. But we only get that layer of trust by being able to talk and ask the hard question. So when we get together at our unit, one of the things every time we get together is we have, basically a town hall amongst ourselves. And we ask the really hard questions. Like, what happens if the president calls upon us to, put down what is considered a seditious operation on American soil? That's not our job. As American soldiers, that's my job. My job is to defend the interests of our country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. But because of posse comitatus, we are not allowed to operate on American soil. Now, you do have National Guard assets that are considered a state asset that they can be called up. But Army Reserve or a reserve unit or an active duty unit, that's not our job. So a lot of people get that confused when they realize, they say, hey, well, they're deploying, troops on American soil. It's 9 times out of 10, it's a state unit. So your National Guard unit. Would we ever fire on American citizens? I ran into this situation one time in my military career. I was down at Camp Pendleton when the Rodney King riots were happening. And we sat there and watched it. And finally, the governor went to the president. The president activated the Marines because the Marines were there at Camp Pendleton. And we basically went up for lack of a better word, peacekeeping operations. It was to protect the firemen. That was our main primary goal, was to protect the fire departments so the fire departments could, in turn, put out fires. And we were driving up, and one of the things we were talking about on the drive up, because we had belt-fed machine guns on top of our Humvees. It was like, what happens if someone shoots at us? And I'm like, as a young Lance Corporal at the time, I was like, fuck it, shoot them back.
Yeah.
But then I had an old school gunnery sergeant going, these are American citizens, folks. At the end of the day, don't forget that they're still Americans.
Yeah.
And I kind of took that to heart. So we got up there. We were probably in LA, probably 3 hours. And some dude came out and had a little nickel plated Saturday night special and started popping rounds off at us. And basically what we do, we just got down and buttoned up. We're in a bulletproof, Humvee. What's a little 25 caliber pistol going to do us? Did he get his rocks off? Sure did. Could I have opened up with a 50 cal belt fed? Sure could have. But the smarter move was to not let him run out of his 7 rounds of ammunition or hope his gun explodes, which 50-50 chance, or just let him get his rocks off. He can say, yeah, I took pot shots off at him. Great. He gets to talk shit. Everybody still gets to go home alive.
Yeah.
Shooting on American citizens, No, it'll never happen. There's units out there. I work with CAG. I work with Delta. I work with SEALs. I work with MARSOC. I work with all the tier 1 units, and we've had these conversations. It's like, no. And if I was ever called upon to, the first thing you have to do is sit there and look at the person that gave the order and be like, we're going to have to go out back and have a conversation because you just gave what is considered an unlawful order.
Yeah.
Would I shoot at someone to defend my fellow soldiers? For me, that's more of a moral argument that I'd have to deal with myself.
Yeah.
But, would I go out of my way to shoot at an American citizen? No way, shape, or form. Not even on the desk, not even on the table, not even on the menu. And take heart in knowing that 98% of your fellow soldiers and Marines and sailors and all that think the same way. There's always a few in there that have no compunction about shooting at an American, which is sad, but the way the military is going, their current mindset, morals, values, and moral compass, I don't have as much faith in it as I used to. And that's probably one of the reasons why I am retiring.
That was going to be my leading question.
Hey, real quick, Shelly, can you put up Jake's channel and my channel? Dusty was asking.
I don't. For some reason, I'm not seeing Dusty's stuff on the channel or on the thing that I'm on.
Is
So,
she on,
Dusty,
Jake?
what?
Is she on Jake's channel?
Maybe, but Dusty, the channel for, there we go. Channel for Jason is Kentucky Sustainable Living.
Where'd
You
Bill
can find
go?
him, huh?
Where'd Bill go?
He's right
He
there.
left.
Oh, he's out. Jason's channel is Kentucky Sustainable Living on YouTube. And then you can go to KentuckySustainableLiving.com to find all of the information about the festival. And then Jake's channel is Dog Creek Farms on YouTube. And he posts stuff about the festival on his channel as well. I'm pretty sure that Bill doesn't have a channel. He may after, his whole life situation changes, but who knows? And yeah. Okay, you're on my channel. I'm looking at it from Jason's channel, so sorry about that. But where Two Old Crows is at, right?
I have a lot of content. I have no channel.
Okay.
Hey, when we start doing our podcast, we're going to have you on, Bill.
Well, I appreciate that. I'd be honored.
We got to get that going, Shelly.
Yep. So if you, we're coming up on an hour. So if you just got on here or whatever, you can find out all the information about the festival at KentuckySustainableLiving.com. You can find our page on Facebook at Kentucky Sustainable Living Homesteading and Preparedness Festival. That's the name of the page. We've started, it's brand new. I've just now started getting content on it, and we're going to start pushing that out and boosting it to see, how far we can reach out to let people know about the festival. Y'all, we have got some fantastic speakers that are coming to speak. I mean, Bill's one of them. You're going to get a lot of great information from him. We've got Chuck Peoples coming to do the homestead medicine class. All the stuff that Bill talked about and, the things that he's going to talk about at the festival about what happens immediately. Chuck actually teaches.
Shelly cut out.
Chuck actually teaches the exact same thing on the medical level. So when you're, like if you can do triage, you can figure out stuff. We, a lot of us have been trained in CPR and first aid and all of that kind of thing. But what happens when it's worse than that? What happens when you have a major wound? What happens, if you have a broken leg or something like that and you can't get to a hospital? That's the class that Chuck is teaching, and that's the class that you need to take. He's a fantastic teacher. You need to go check it out. All of the information about that is on the website. Also, Eric Johnson is going to teach about doing a plant guild. And for those of you who don't know who it is, the plant guild is, or don't know what it is, a plant guild is the basic building block of a food forest. So, installing like one plant guild a year, it might cost you, I don't know, less than $100, like for real. and add one of those each year. And in a few years, you're going to have food growing just like wild, like stuff grows in the forest or whatever. And you don't even have to maintain it. You can go out and just pick food, harvest it, and you've got stuff there to eat.
Every time I walk through the front yard, I pick strawberries and eat them right out of there. There
you go. So that plant or that tree guild class is super important for preparedness, and it's even set up in a way that it's like conspicuous or whatever. You know, like if somebody's walking by, they're not even going to know what's growing there because it looks like the forest for real. So come and check out Eric's class. There's information about that on the website as well. Those 2 classes are paid classes. But the festival those will be on Friday. The festival starts on Saturday. It runs Saturday and Sunday. It's a free festival. We've got a phenomenal lineup of speakers. Darren was on last week. Him and Billy Bond from Permapasture Farm are going to be teaching you all how to process a hog. They're also going to be teaching you all how to process chickens. We have tons of great giveaways and things that people have donated for us to, give to you or, tick it off for you all or whatever. I don't know if I can say the R word or not, but what else, Jason? What am I forgetting? Oh, the dates are October 28th and 29th. The charity classes are the 27th. And it's going to be at the Ag Expo Center in Bowling Green, Kentucky. We can't wait to meet you all. Come make sure you come up and introduce yourself and say, hey, we're so excited. We're so excited.
The only thing you forgot was the dinner, the charity dinner for Vets for Child Rescue Saturday.
Okay, you tell them about that because you're right. I completely forgot about it.
We've got Saturday night, we've got the charity dinner for Vets for Child Rescue. All the proceeds for the dinner are going to go to Vets for Child Rescue. We've actually, and I don't have one right now, but Ike that knows Billy at Permapastures has shirts for sale at permapasturesfarm.com that all the proceeds for those t-shirts go to the dinner. I actually ordered 2. Billy called me the other day. He's like, this guy's got shirts. I was like, I want 2. He put them up on the website and I ordered them right then. But he's got a few shirts left and we can probably get more shirts made for that. But we're trying to raise $10,000 is our goal that we want to reach, to where they'll do an operation in Kentucky to save some of these kids. That's what we're shooting for. Everything else, if that is a success, everything else can go by the wayside. I will be happy with the festival, honestly. And that is Saturday night, and you can get tickets for it at our website. And there's also, if you can't afford, I know money's tight, if you can't afford to come to the charity dinner, give $1, give $5, $10. There's a portal where you can donate the money. There are some credit card fees, stuff like that. But if you donate $10, we're going to kick in. If they charge whatever the percentage is, we're going to kick in and pay the percentage on that.
Yeah, so we'll cover the cost of the fee. So whatever amount of money you donate will go, all of that money will go to Vets for Child Rescue, because we'll cover the cost of the fees for that particular thing.
Yeah.
And one of the cool things, if you come to the dinner, one of the cool things that you get to do is you get to sit and rub elbows with Bill and talk to him and pick his brain. You'll get to talk to Billy and talk to Darren and Aaron T. Scott and Tag. And I mean, there's tons of people.
Chuck will be there.
Yeah.
And most all of our guest speakers and everything are going to be at the dinner that night, where you'll get to sit with them, hang out, talk to them for a while, eat dinner with them. We're probably going to have some wine there, so the talking might get a little bit more fluid when you're one-on-one with somebody and some wines involved. So
well lubricated.
Yeah. So, but guys, I appreciate everybody being here. Bill, I appreciate it a bunch for you stopping.
Definitely my pleasure, my honor.
And telling us some good stuff. Jake, you got anything else?
No, just share it, get the word out. I mean, it's a free event. Make the trip, build community. You're going to learn a ton.
Yep.
All right.
One of the nice parts about prepping is that people always ask, well, how do I meet other preppers? And here you are, you're offering the perfect situation for them to meet your fellow preppers.
Exactly. And I mean, and you don't, and the cool thing about it is you don't have to qualify somebody. because you already know they're into the preparedness and the homesteading lifestyle. If they're at that conference, it's not like talking to somebody at your kid's school and then they report to you like, this guy's a crazy dude. So,
Yep.
So,
And I promise you, if you come to this festival, even if you're from out of state or whatever, you will meet people that are close to you. Because every festival that the three of us go to, we always, I meet people from Kentucky. Jason meets people that, live the county over.
Shelly's cutting out. But yes, you will.
Sorry.
Coming to the festival, you will meet somebody that is close to you. I can almost guarantee it.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, we're going to sign off. We've been going a little over an hour, and we will see y'all next Friday with another guest speaker. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys having me.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you.